So I'd like to introduce Steve Saling. Steve is from the Boston, Massachusetts area. He's a first-timer here, so we're very happy to have him helping carry the message to Washington. He's a landscape architect by trade. Steve doesn't know we did a little research on him here, but diagnosed with ALS about 11 years ago, and he has been a leader in the design of what's called the Leonard Florence Center for Living in Chelsea, Massachusetts. And what that is, it's a 30-bedroom facility that has been automated so that someone can operate the environment, if you will, doors, lights, etc., elevators, with the barest of movements, eye blinks, facial muscle movement, very simple movements. And the whole idea is to make an environment accessible for someone with a disability that has limitations in those areas. Steve established the ALS Residence Initiative, which is a fundraising and advocacy group around those items that are embodied in the Leonard Florence Center. And the motto, which I think if we could bronze this, I think we would. The motto of the organization is, "Until medicine proves otherwise, technology is the cure." And I think you couldn't ask for a more appropriate motto than around what we're here today to talk about and what the message is that we wanted to carry to Congress. So before we get into the logistics, we asked Steve if he would make a couple of opening comments to the group, and I'm going to turn it over to him right now.
Hello, my name is Steve Saling, and I have had ALS for 11 years. Ironically, before my diagnosis, I was a professional landscape architect who specialized in the design of accessible parks for people with disabilities. I could tell you how terrible it is to be so paralyzed that I cannot even speak, because it is quite terrible. After all, my doctor told me that most people with ALS do not survive beyond 5 years. I was advised to get my affairs in order. One of the reasons I won't go through the weeds with you, telling you how terrible ALS is because I consider myself very fortunate to be in such good health. After 11 years with this disease, I no longer take things like breathing for granted anymore, because a lot of my friends cannot. Not only can I breathe on my own, but if I get my chair positioned at just the right angle, I can find a sweet spot where my head has a little mobility. The subtle movement of my head means the world to me. I am so grateful for what I can do that I do not fret what I cannot. The reason my head movement is so critical to me is because it has become a good substitute for my mouth and my legs. Two things ALS thought it had stolen from me, but is well mitigated by the computer and power wheelchair. The little silver dot on the bridge of my glasses is my computer mouse. Not only can I communicate with great articulation, my speech-generating computer keeps me connected to the world through the internet and social media like everybody else. I can continue to design using AutoCAD. Instead of designing accessible parks, I design objects to make my life a little easier and have them 3D printed. I can continue to be artistic using Photoshop. I might be slow, but because of the precise positioning allowed by my wheelchair, giving my head a small degree of mobility, I can use my speech-generating computer to continue being a productive, valuable member of society who still wants to make a difference in the world. Despite the intrinsic value that technology now provides to everyone, and especially the physically disabled. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services essentially mandated that these speech-generating computers that open up the world to people who cannot speak should be dumbed down until the only function allowed was to communicate with people who happen to be in the same room. That CMS rule change to deny fully functional computers to people who cannot speak only happened 3 years ago this month. Fortunately, we had a powerful advocate named Steve Gleason, who was a retired football player with the New Orleans Saints with ALS, who led the charge to change the law a little more than a year later. Because of the Steve Gleason Act of 2015, people unfortunate enough to not be able to speak don't have to suffer the further indignity of having their communication imprisoned to a single room. Remember when I was telling you how grateful I am to have a little head mobility because it allows me to use my computer with great precision and accuracy? There is another reason that my limited head movement means the world to me. Using my head is how I drive my wheelchair, again with great precision and accuracy. I have been in my chair full-time for 9 years now, and we have been through a lot of changes together. I am in my chair from 16 to 18 hours every day, and I have never gotten a pressure sore. If I could, I would like to kiss and hug whoever invented the Roho cushion. I have a Roho seat and back cushion, and cannot imagine my life without them. One of the advantages of ALS is that I always have the most comfortable seat in the house. While my seat and back cushions have never changed, the same cannot be said of my driving controls. ALS is a progressive disease, which means that my paralysis has been very gradual over many years. My first wheelchair was pretty generic, and my arms worked fine, so I enjoyed zipping around as fast as I could go. It wasn't long, though, until my fingers stopped cooperating with me, and so the modifications began. It was minor at first, just changing the shape of the joystick to adapt to my evolving grip. It wasn't much more than a year when using a joystick to drive became a dangerous affair. I tried a chin switch to drive and hated it. I had heard of a head ray that would allow me to drive with my head and thought it sounded pretty cool. I tried it and took to it right away, and it extended my independence for 2 or 3 more years. ALS is a wretched disease, and my neck progressively became too weak to lift my head off of the head ray headrest, which I expect most of you wheelchair experts know is like not being able to take your foot off of the gas pedal. It was time to modify and customize my drive controls once again. The thing about ALS is that no one experiences it the same way. Like fingerprints, no one has the same pattern. The solution that worked for me was to move the gas pedal from behind my head and put it over my left shoulder. The mode switch that I held in my lap had become as worthless as my arms failed, so I moved it next to my right cheek. I had to take advantage of what mobility I had left, and my head was it. I hope you now have an appreciation of why my head mobility is so precious to me. Not only can I access my computer, as always, I have complete control of all functions of my wheelchair with the 4 switches around my head. I am constantly fine-tuning the position of my chair to keep my head in the sweet spot where my head can comfortably and confidently navigate my wheelchair and my computer. You can understand why it infuriates me that some counter-CMS is trying to save money by taking away critical tools. I am not being to be counted. I am a real person who will suffer terribly if the tools provided me to live a vital and productive life are taken away. They tried once before to take computers away from the people who need them most. We rallied and Congress listened. It is time to rally again. My disability may be severe, but that is why I need more access to technology, not less. I feel so blessed to live in an age when technology can literally open doors for me. When I was diagnosed in 2006, the iPhone was still science fiction. However, I knew that power wheelchairs would keep me mobile when my legs failed me. I knew that computers would keep me communicating, like my hero, Stephen Hawking. I also knew that compact, portable ventilators would breathe for me when my diaphragm fails to pump my lungs. Until medicine proves otherwise, technology is the cure. I am so grateful to the National Coalition for Assistive and Rehab Technology, leading the charge to make permanent what everyone knows is the right thing to do. We all have an important job to do tomorrow. We have to tell our stories and make ourselves heard. I know everyone here has a story to tell. Make sure our representatives know how important it is to act on this in the next 2 months. It doesn't matter if you talk to your member of Congress or one of their staffers. Make sure you get their card and send them a personal email reminding them to do the right thing. Complex Rehab Technology is the only thing that makes a difference for people like me. I would be a vegetable without it. Failure is not an option. Thank you all for your dedication and your tireless efforts to make our lives better. Knock him dead tomorrow.